Hi there, welcome back to my channel. It's Anita here. I am a blogger, YouTuber, transformational coach, and I am on a mission to undo the culture of silence. And I know over time it feels like, you know, my focus really has been on mental health and sexual violence, but pretty much anything that is important to talk about, to have a conversation on, that we have chosen to take a silent route on. Those are things that I want to talk about and I want to address. And I do this by creating awareness and educating on these topics. And today I want to talk about something, one of such topics that, you know, we tend to be very silent about, but then it's really important to talk about. But before I jump into that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been watching my videos and who have subscribed. I just want to say thank you. And to everyone who engages with me on and off social media, thank you. So to what I want to talk about today, I think it's important because it happens to be the leading cause of death in people ages 15 to 29, and this is according to a report by the World Health Organization. And that, my friends, is suicide. And I know it's a heavy topic. I warn you ahead. But I mean, what would we rather have? Talk about it, learn about it, and talk about it, and help someone who might be in need, or ignore it and someone you know commits suicide, God forbid, right? But that you do know someone who commits suicide, and then you still talk about them committing suicide. Either ways, we're talking about it. So let's not have our hands forced to talk about it. Let's be proactive and learn about it. And don't worry, I know I said it's heavy because it's the topic itself, but really what we're talking about today in itself shouldn't be so heavy. I just want to share some things with you that, you know, you can use to identify someone who might be suicidal, and you might be able to stop that right in its tracks and save a life. And these are some of the reasons why it is important that sometimes we're having these conversations. I got my note here, so don't worry if you see me moving back and forth. Before I jump into what I have for you today with the tips, I just want to say that why this is dear to me personally is because I used to be suicidal, all right? And while for me, the only thing that prevented me from taking my life was basically just an act of God, honestly speaking, but I do recognize that that might not be the case for everyone. I had a divine intervention, but you know, you who are watching might be the divine intervention that someone needs. And I just want to equip you with what you need to look out for, or certain things that when you start to see in someone you care about, then maybe it's time to have that conversation with them and nip things in its bud quickly. These are all things that, you know, I've experienced personally, as well as things that I have learned from doing research on the topic. So what are some of the signs that you should look out for in your friends and families and just people around you that tells you that they're probably being suicidal? Number one, withdrawal and lack of interest is a big sign. All right, this is especially true even for people who are naturally more outgoing, and then all of a sudden they just want to be by themselves. When that starts to happen, then you know that something is wrong, and you want to maybe have a conversation with them, and don't just let them be by themselves. All right, they don't want to go out of their rooms, they don't want to take a shower, they don't want to step out of the house. Okay, I mean, they just don't want to do anything. Even things that used to be interesting to them, they don't want to do those things anymore. Usually that's a cry for help. All right, and even in some cases when they're engaged in things that they've taken responsibilities for, and they start to withdraw from those things, these are all signs of cry for help. So please take it seriously. Number two sign that tells you that someone might be suicidal: deep-seated self-hate and self-loath. And this is a very big one, and I know that for most people, especially with even teenagers, sometimes you hear them say things a lot, you know, that might sound like this. Doesn't mean they're suicidal, maybe not, but still pay attention to it and try to get to the bottom of things to see what exactly is going on. And how would you know that someone is in a place of How would you know that someone is in a place of deep-seated self-hate or self-loath? You hear them say things like, I could never be good enough. You hear them say things like, I just hate myself. You hear them say things like, I am very useless. I can never get anything done right. You hear them say things like, maybe the world would be a better place without me in it. When you start hearing things like that, my friend, please look into it. Those things don't just come out of nowhere. All right. Or you hear things like, I wish I was never born. That was a very big one for me personally when I was suicidal. Sometimes I just can be like, why am I even here? What am I doing here? And all of that. They make little mistakes. They make it seem like they're the worst things that ever happened to the world. When you start hearing things like that, please pay attention to it. And I know that as Africans, especially when African, we don't talk about these things, but really, maybe we should start having these conversations. I can't think of how many lives would have been here today would have been saved if someone had stopped to say, why are you saying that? And where is that coming from? But we never have those conversations, and we keep having these things on our hands. And I don't think that is cool. Okay, so sign number 3, they keep talking about death, or they seem so preoccupied with death. They seem so preoccupied with death. This is, it can take so many different forms. And in this day and age of social media, sometimes you see people write things on their wall. They post things on Twitter and Instagram. Please, sometimes some of us just go in there, we laugh about those things, and the next thing we're hearing is they're gone, they committed suicide. And we cast our minds back and we're like, oh my God, she was saying this, he was saying that, and sometimes, people post things like that are very poetic in that sense, but really it's a cry for help. Or they go on social media and then they start asking certain questions like, what happens when someone dies? And I know this one case where I kind of like had a conversation with someone who was going through suicide, who was being suicidal or having suicide ideations. And the only reason I was able to uncover this was because this person categorically asked the question, what happens to you if you die by suicide? Do you still get to go to heaven? That right there is not something people just randomly think about. Like, I mean, sometimes it happens, don't get me wrong, but this coupled with other signs really got me bothered with this person. And when we got into conversation and spent hours in digging down, we found out that eventually, this person was being suicidal. And so sometimes you hear some of those things. I remember also reaching out to a friend who had been posting stuff on social media about death and dying and whatnot. And, it was very poetic. It sounded nice. It sounded deep. It sounded dark. But the person was being suicidal, and people loved it and people commented. And yes, it was good poetry, but where was it coming from? All right. And so you get into those conversations and you begin to see that these are people who are just struggling to just get by and leave. And you want to help them by reaching out. Okay. Sign number 4. Did I mention we're going to 7 signs? Okay. Sign number 4. It starts to show extreme hopelessness. All right. And when people are in this state, they start to say things like, I don't think anything would ever make sense. All right. Or they start to say things like, there's just no way out of this, or I don't think I can keep doing this. Right. There's this sense of hopelessness. And I get it that sometimes we all feel hopeless in life one way or another. There's always that. It's normal part of life, and living. But I'm talking about people who are perpetually in that state. Everything, they can't see a way out of even the littlest of things. All right. When people are in that place, I don't think I can keep doing this. I don't think I can go on for much longer. When you start hearing things like that, I don't think anything can ever get better. And for some of them, it's also masked in questions like, why is there so much suffering in the world? Why do people have to get sick and die? When you start hearing some of those things and they've become really consistent, maybe it's time to have a conversation with that person or reach out to help. It might be a sign. And then number 5 is engaging in extreme and dangerous behavior, or even not so seemingly dangerous behavior, but even things as simple as cutting themselves. And I know that for me, this was a very big one. When I was very suicidal, sometimes you'll see unexplainable marks on me. I will cut myself and just watch myself bleed out. I know it's creepy, it's crazy, but it's the things that people do. And I just want to say that when people are suicidal, it's not because they really want to die. Honestly speaking, nobody wants to die. And what much more worse, nobody even wants to be the ones that will take their own lives. And that's the simple gospel truth. Take it or leave it. It's the truth. What really happens with most people is they just want whatever pain they're feeling to end. by all means necessary. And so you see them trying to do things that, in their minds, they think it should help them, and I know it doesn't have to make sense to someone who's never been there, but to someone who's been there, honestly, I feel like don't get it. All right. And to that person who is in that state at that moment, somehow in their minds, that experience makes sense to them, for them. All right. So you start to see extreme behavior. They're doing things that make you almost question, oh my God, does this person have a death wish? Chances are they do. All right. And that's a cry for help. And sometimes might even be like very erratic things, like, someone just randomly does the craziest, weirdest, out of character thing, like, maybe dye their hair green. It can be really subtle, but not so subtle things too. Drinking, getting into substance use. I know that, at the peak of my experiences with suicide, I was a heavy drinker. All right. And well, yes, I drank even before then, but it was really serious where sometimes I was like super drunk, but these things were just all signs for help, cry for help. All right. So when people start engaging in things that make you worry about their lives, chances are that they're really having a death wish and they're doing everything possible to make sure that they end up dead. Okay. All right. And then the other thing, one thing, I'm going to back up a little to talking about death. One thing I forgot to mention there was that sometimes they even start asking questions like, what are the easiest way to die or less painful way to die? I know this was a question that I asked a lot, and I eventually tried to take a route that I thought was going to be the least painful way to die. And I was going to get some drugs from the store and just kind of overdose on it. But luckily, the guy that was there, I still swear till today that guy was an angel sent from heaven. But that guy refused to sell me those drugs. And that is the only reason I am still here today. Because after that night, I never mustered up the courage again to really follow through with the things that I wanted to do. That said, back to erratic behaviors, there were times that I'll just randomly walk into the road hoping that a car would hit me and I'll just be gone. That way, I didn't kill myself. I just died. So when you start to see some of those things, it's a cry for help. Okay. Sign number 6. People start getting their affairs in order and start saying goodbye. Again, they sometimes take this to social media. So please, social media should not just be all about entertainment. Yes, we can tell a lot going on in people's lives. The good, the bad, the ugly, the true, and the fake news. We can tell all of it, including sometimes when they're being suicidal. Because sometimes you see them come up on social media and people start saying things like, oh my God, I'm going to miss you all. Something is wrong. All right. Or, for parents, all right, this is one thing I'll say to parents. Your kids all of a sudden starts acting like today is the last day they'll see you. Something is wrong. Look into it. It's okay. Feel the love. Show it with them. Share it with them. But please look into it. Okay. And then you start hearing things like, oh my God, I'm going to miss my friends. I'm going to miss everybody. Some form of goodbye messages that really just doesn't even make any sense. Look into it. Something is probably going on there. And in my case, I know that there was a time that someone had reached out to me, a very close friend, and had said, you do know if anything happens to me, you get to take care of my kid, right? And I'm like, yeah, why are we talking about this? And we dug deeper and deeper, and there were all sorts of questions. When people start putting their affairs in order. For older people, when they start suddenly writing wills that they didn't think of before. Don't get me wrong, people can decide that, oh my God, I don't have a will. What happens if I die? That's different. But when it's just all of a sudden, there's just this intentionality with, I just want to get this done. And then there's also some sense of urgency to it. Something is probably up and you want to look into that. And finally, when people have been depressed for a long time, they've been down, and then suddenly there's this seeming sense of peace and calm and happiness that they start to show. And I know that should be a good thing, right? Ideally, it should be a good thing. Really should be. And don't get me wrong, it's possible that someone can be depressed for like the last 3 months and suddenly they're back in a happy state. I'm a Christian. I love to pray, and I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in the miracle of the peace of God. And I have experienced that myself. But when someone has been in that state where it is, oh, there was the miracle of the peace of God in that instance, you would know, versus when the person sort of have come to peace with, I think I'm going to do this. And then there is that sense of, I have gotten a way out of this pain and of this mess. And they have made a decision that they're going, the way out is to kill themselves. When they have made that decision, oftentimes you'll see them just get up and start to go about their lives, and they're happy. And most often what will follow is number 6, which is you start hearing them say things that, you know, will make you feel like you're probably never going to see them again. Chances are they're really working on you never seeing them again. Look into it. And so these are 7 signs that I'm going to leave with you. Again, like I said, I know this is a heavy one, so I apologize, but I think it's important because we're in a pandemic. People have to self-isolate. People have to be by themselves. People can't really visit people anymore. And we're talking about showing love and compassion. And I do believe that one way we can really do this right now in this time is to intentionally watch out for one another, intentionally watch out for, you know, changes in people that can be detrimental. The last thing we want is hearing about one more news of suicide. Again, like I said, people who are within the ages of 15 to 29 tend to be the hardest hits. So which means that some of these people are teenagers or kids. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's cool. And if there is something that you and I can do, one of it is to educate ourselves to say, hey, what should I be looking out for? You know, so that if someone is exhibiting some of these things, I can quickly get them the help that they need. And don't worry, I'm not leaving you with all of this without giving you tips on how to help people if you find them displaying some of these signs. So watch out for the next video where I will be talking about things that you can do to help someone that you think might be suicidal. All right. So until next time, I hope this really helps someone, and please share it because this can really literally save a life. All right. So please share it, educate yourself, and much more importantly, please do not stigmatize people who are going through things like this. All right. Our role is to be there for one another, show kindness, love, compassion, and support. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Share the video, like the video, and I would love to hear your comments on what stood out the most to you. Thanks. Take care.